Hurts takes the snap. He's back. He's going to run. He's in! Touchdown! Jalen Hurts! The Eagles are just devouring the Giants. And it is A.J. Brown again! Another touchdown!
Hey, welcome back to the, what kind of tune were you listening to, buddy? What had you going like that?
I was listening to the intro.
Oh, okay. Welcome back to the Linc Lineup draft show. Today is a very special day because we are going to talk about our top 10 wide receivers in this upcoming draft. With me today, I got the boys, the full crew. I got our not local draft guy, but our resident draft guy, Bryce. And then we have our almost draft guys, me and Josh. I think he's over here on your screen. He might be over here. I'm not sure yet. But he's somewhere. He's here. So today's a fun episode, I think, because wouldn't you guys agree that the wide receiver class this year is pretty stacked? And then putting 10 guys in the top 10 is a challenge because, they each bring different skill sets that you want, in a wide receiver, and they excel in places where others don't. So it was fun. It was difficult. So if you don't agree, sorry. Some of you guys shit on us for the quarterback one on TikTok. Not cool, guys.
I've seen that. That's how we got cooked.
Not cool, guys.
Because
Bo Nix's ass. That's for a fact. Bo Nix's ass. So lay off of us. But yeah, we'll talk about some people that are in our top 10 as well. Mainly Johnny Wilson, just because that guy 6'7" is going to be a physical freak, and he's going to be the next Calvin Johnson. You guys just don't know it yet. Okay, we'll clip this, and we will present it later on, 5 years on the road, whenever Johnny Wilson is. His trajectory is straight for the Hall of Fame. Greatest of all time conversations. But yeah, pray to God he doesn't go to the Cowboys, Giants, or Commanders. Hopefully, comes the Eagles. Howie, do your thing. But let's talk about the wide receivers. So this year, number 10 wide receiver, straight from Georgia, Lad McConkey. Bryce, what do you know about Mr. Ladd?
So, Lad McConkey. I believe, don't quote me, think he's a 4-year player. Think he was a senior this past year, stayed all 4 years at Georgia. I believe so.
He's a junior.
Okay, excuse me. Well, would have been a senior if he decided to stay. But
that's how that works.
This past year, yeah, duh. This past year, dealt with a little bit of injury. I think he had an ankle issue. But looking at him in the Georgia offense, he was one of the most productive wide receivers in college. He is a monster after the catch. He everybody talks about a receiver, if they get the ball in their hands, turn into kind of a running back. Makes people miss, runs really good routes, got good top end speed. He would be, to me, I think his ceiling is a very good number 3 option, possibly number 2. That's probably his ceiling in the NFL. I don't think he's ever a number 1 receiver. I may sound stupid in 5 years when he's leading the Texans as their number 1 receiver or something. Who knows? But I like Lad McConkey a lot. He's a guy that I would very much like the Eagles to look into, possibly with a day 2 selection somewhere, whether it be 2nd round, 3rd round, whichever where he falls. I think he would have a detrimental impact to the Eagles offense this past year.
I think when you look at him, you look at his size, and you immediately notice that he's not a big guy. He's not a physical guy. So a lot of his wins on offense are going to be, technique and using like just like a twitch, to get the DB off balance. When it comes to physicality, contested catches, he's not going to win. Typically, he's not going to. If he gets jammed at the line of scrimmage, it's going to disrupt the play, right? So you definitely want to look at him as like a slot guy, and then potentially a return guy. So I know this isn't directed towards the Eagles, this episode, but like if you're looking to get not rid of Britton Covey because we like Britton Covey, but if you want to get rid of Britton Covey to not take up a roster spot just for like a punt returner, this guy could be the answer, right? So he's quick, he's fast, but he's just not big. So definitely see him as like a slot receiver, a return guy. I think he'd be a great piece to an offense. He's not going to be the star guy. He'll never be the star guy, but I think the potential is there to be an exciting return guy and then a super, super solid slot guy.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, he wins with a lot of technical aspects to his game. Wins with leverage. Like he gets up on DB's toes real well. He's really good out of his breaks. He runs really good routes. If you ever, I'd like if you after this episode or if whoever's listening, go on YouTube and watch his one-on-one reps at the Senior Bowl. He may have made himself a lot of money at the Senior Bowl that past weekend or that weekend. He looked like one of the best, if not the best, receiver there at the Senior Bowl. He played really, really well.
Josh, you got anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think you guys put it well. He's not the most physically talented receiver just in terms of stature, but he's quick. He has great. He's like very technically proficient, good route runner, and he actually does have good top end speed. But like you guys said, he's not the biggest guy. He can get jammed to the line of scrimmage. He's not the best contested catch kind of receiver, so he's probably not going to pan out to be, like a number 1 or number 2 outside receiver type of guy. He probably is best suited for the slot. But also, like Bryce said, I could be eating these words in a few years when he ends up being some team's number 1 and is just dominating with, crisp route running and just being able to get himself open. But yeah, he's definitely a guy that I would like to see the Eagles take a look at. We could use a slot receiver, and like you said, Chase, we like Britton Covey, but I wouldn't mind opening up that roster spot so we don't just have one dedicated to a return guy.
Yep. I think we pretty much like said that he's not like super physical, like just to like his build, but he's a hard worker, and so he doesn't mind blocking. He plays the game the right way. But
that term comes around a lot when you talk about white receivers.
Is he a gym rat also?
First one in, last one to leave.
Real coach's son.
I know this. It sounds cliche and it sounds as stupid as it is, but like honestly, his comparison might be like a Hunter Renfrow type person, but who's fast.
Oh, here we go. Yeah. I can't wait to talk about Coop on the defensive side. That's gonna be a wild one right there. But yeah,
as much as we're sitting here joking around, Ladd McConkey is a very, very good receiver, and he's somebody that I think who can make a lot of money for a team in the NFL working out the slot position.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Anything we want to add before we move on? Because I swear to God, I didn't mean to be like, hard worker, just tough, like just really does everything the right way. Doesn't back down from contact. Nothing. He puts his head down and goes to work. Yeah.
Keep talking about it.
If Belichick was still in New England, they might take him at number 3, but
yeah, could. They definitely could. Man, all right. Let's
Give me some draft grades on where you think he might fall.
I think it'll be second round. I don't think he will be a first round pick. I know we haven't made our big board yet, but I'd have him somewhere in like the 30 range, 30 to 40 range, like high 40s, depending on what that means, like 41, 42. But it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up being like a late first round pick, but I think definitely second round.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I would say second round. I think just because of the fact that he's probably more suited to the slot, I don't see him creeping into the end of the first. I figured probably like Chase said, probably in around the late 30s, early 40s. I would say.
All right, I'm ready to talk about this guy. This guy next is my guy, straight from South Carolina. What can you tell me about him, Bryce?
Okay, Xavier Legette from University of South Carolina. Definitely a height, weight, speed kind of player. But he almost reminds me. So I'm sitting here trying to think.
Debo.
No.
Debo.
Because he's a little bit taller than Debo. If I'm correct. Yeah. He's got good size and he fills out his frame really well as an outside receiver. The notable South Carolina receiver that I think of is Alshon Jeffrey. Alshon wasn't Xavier's not as tall as Alshon, but he's got the same kind of build as Alshon. He might be a little bit thicker than Alshon, but he runs really good routes for how big he is. He gets out of his breaks well. And Chase mentioned Deebo Samuel. He's a guy, if you get the ball in his hands, he will absolutely make you pay. If this was any other draft class, he definitely could have pushed like the number 1 or number 2 top rated receiver. This is just a really, really deep class of really good receivers. But he worked really well with Spencer Rattler at South Carolina. Spencer kind of force fed him the ball a bunch in a lot of key moments. He's a massive deep threat, but he works the middle of the field really, really well. He has the potential to turn into a team's number 1 receiver at the next level. He's got good hands. There's not a lot of negatives, I don't think, on Xavier. But I think some of the negatives that he might have on his draft profile aren't substantial enough to outweigh like some of his positives. If you turn on the tape, he'll pretty much outmuscle any corner in college football that you could probably think of. I think Xavier Legette's a really, really good player.
Yeah, I think he could either soar up the draft boards or stay where he's at, depending on how he does the combine. If he runs like a 4.3 or like super super high 4.2, skyrocket, But you know how Eagles fans we hate Debo, right? You look at my picture on X, Twitter, and my name, we hate Debo. But before last year, I love Debo. I like the way he plays. Like everything about him, man. Like whenever when I picture a wide receiver that I admire, it's the guy that runs like a running back, but is a wide receiver. And that's what you get. This guy's very physical. He won't shy away from contact, whether it's after he catches the ball or while the ball's in the air. He's not going to back down. He's going to make some exciting plays in the next level, and I pray to God the Eagles take him. I think besides Johnny Wilson, I think this is my sleeper of this wide receiver draft. But we'll get to Johnny Wilson when we get to number 1, because that's far.
Yeah,
far.
You're fucking crazy.
But yeah, I think that the only knocks on him, and I'm a Kentucky fan, so I watch SEC football, and I live in South Carolina, so it's everywhere. It's everywhere. His knock is like his production was limited to like his last year. Really, that's whenever he kind of took off, which is fine. Sometimes the opportunity's just not there. And then mainly it's just on deeper throws. He doesn't attack the ball. He kind of just let the balls come to him. And I think early on in his career, you're going to see some deep throws to him that might get picked off or tipped that you normally wouldn't see from like a seasoned vet that goes up and attacks the ball. Like AJ, AJ has late hands, but he goes up and gets the ball. Whereas those other wide receivers, those other guys will let the ball come to them.
And on the tape that I have watched of him, the one knock that I have noticed, like when you're talking about some deep throws and deep catches, he's kind of a body catcher, and what that means, like he doesn't attack the ball with his hands. He lets the ball come to him, and more so, a lot of times catch the ball with his body. That's not a really good trait you want to have at the NFL, because you can get away with a lot of that in high school and college, because defensive players' reaction times aren't near as good as people in the NFL. If you tend to catch with your body, that's like that extra millisecond or extra couple milliseconds, half second, that the ball has to travel to its target, which allows a defensive player to jump in front of that ball. And at the next level, he's going to have to get a little bit stronger with his hands and actually catch the ball with his hands instead of letting it travel to his body.
Yep. Anything you want to add, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like with Leggett. I mean, he's 6'3", like almost 230.
Thick.
He's a big guy. Honestly, though, I'd kind of like to see him play a little bit more like his size. I mean, he doesn't shy away from contact by any means, but you'd like to see him, I don't know, be more aggressive at the point of at the catching point, catching with his hands instead of letting it come to him, like Bryce said. He also doesn't break as many tackles as you'd expect for somebody that big. He's not easy to bring down, but I just would like to see him. I don't know. I mean, I know he was a late bloomer, production-wise and growing-wise. I know coming out of high school, he was listed at 6 feet. And I don't know what he weighed, but so he obviously kept growing, and it's almost like he doesn't realize how big he is and what he could do with his physicality. He's kind of still getting used to it. But I think he's definitely somebody who we could look back in a couple of years and be like, why did we have him 9th? We should have had him top 3. This guy is a monster.
Right.
Yeah.
Honestly, his best pro comparison might actually be a taller, faster AJ Brown. Honestly, just like his frame, and he's really explosive, which AJ is one of the receivers that you talk about in the league, such as Debo. So if you get the ball in his hands, he's going to break tackles and he's going to make a lot of plays. But just the height and weight and speed alone, as AJ Brown compares to Xavier Leggett more than maybe Xavier Leggett compares to an Alshon Jeffrey type player, like I mentioned earlier.
Yep. I want him. I definitely want him. Definitely my pick. If we could get him in the second round with one of our 2 picks, or if he fell the third round, I'll take him there too. But
Michael Key says the way we're talking about him makes us want Eagles to take him in the first round.
I mean,
he's got first round potential if he can ever get there. This is definitely his thing.
Yeah, and I know Josh said that he probably doesn't realize how big he is. All he has to do is show up to practice and just run over James Bradbury once, and he'll realize how big he is, and just keep on running him over to the point where he just Anyway, number 8, another Xavier Worthy from Texas, a little bit smaller than the other Xavier we just talked about. I mean, he comes in, he's 6'1", but 172. That's skinny. But if anybody knows anything about skinny, we know about skinny. Well,
you're right.
Kind of. Anyway, Devontae Smith. All right, Xavier Worthy, tell me what you know about him, Bryce.
All right. Xavier Worthy, been at Texas for a while. Was a really highly touted freshman coming out of high school. He is, if you ever have watched, like, excuse me, me being an Alabama fan, I got to watch him a lot the past 2 years when Alabama Texas plays. He seems to absolutely kill in big games. He is an absolute burner. He is all speed. If you get the ball in his hands, on say maybe a slant route or a deep post, and you just happen to be playing too high safety, there's a good chance he might split your safeties, and there's not a lot you can do about it. He's good with his hands. He's kind of a sure catcher. He's got really good hands, but everything about Xavier Worthy is all about speed. Him and his counterpart, A.D. Mitchell, which I think we'll be talking about next, they've played really, really well. They're night and day on the type of the receivers that they are. So the best way I can describe Xavier Worthy, every team has some sort of player that can change the momentum of a game at like a drop of a hat or at one play. And Xavier Worthy has the speed to make that type of play. He's in our previous like rankings that me and Chase kind of talked about, we had him at 10 and Ladd was at 8, which is fine. They're two kind of different receivers. Both have really good speed, but I think Xavier Worthy might just be the more explosive player than Ladd was. Ladd's not near as explosive as Xavier is, where Ladd might be the more all-around receiver. But Xavier Worthy, he can kill you in man coverage and he can dice up his zone. He's a very smart receiver. Knows when to sit down, knows how to get in open space and make himself known to the quarterback. To me, this is definitely a prospect that the Eagles should look at. If they decide to trade back to like a late first, I definitely wouldn't hate an Xavier Worthy in the late first, but he's definitely a second round grade for a lot of teams. I like Xavier Worthy a lot.
Yeah. What's cool about him is he can play anywhere. Typically when we think of a smaller frame before Devontae Smith came along, you would think strictly slot, right? You wouldn't think outside, but he can play outside. He can play in the slot. He definitely can be a return man too. So just like Ladd, you would have a guy double up as a returner too, which would be awesome, But the only thing is, the only really knock on him is the fact that he just isn't big, and bigger cornerbacks are going to have a field day with him. It's what sucks because like I don't want to ever tell anybody they're too small. I don't want to.
Right.
And like that's what we're doing is like, hey, you're too small. But like we all said the same thing about Devontae Smith. Granted, he won a Heisman, but we saw what Devontae Smith could do. So there's no reason for me to think that Xavier Worthy can do the same thing. Different players. I know Eagles fan for life said he likes Smitty. No, he's faster. Basically, he's faster. He's a lot faster. Because let's be honest, Smitty's not a burner because we've seen him get caught from behind, but he's fast. But yeah, I mean, Xavier Worthy would be a very fun pick if I say so. Because like we need speed, and we wanted Quez to be the speed guy. We could have a better receiver in Xavier Worthy. So I think he will be in the second round. probably right around where the Eagles pick, because we picked 50 and 54. So if we want to go receiver in the second round, I think he'll be, if he's there, definitely take a look at him. But
he had some good
really.
production too. There's some receivers on this list that we'll talk about later whose production wasn't as high, but more so you're looking at what that prospect could be, like the future, just based on height, weight, speed. Xavier is not height, weight, but gosh damn it, he is speed. And he had some good production with Quinn Ewers and at Texas working under Steve Sarkisian.
But I mean, as far as other like wide receiver, like stuff that you want him to have, he has everything you need. It's just the size.
Right.
That's all from me.
What about you, Josh?
Yeah, I think Xavier Worthy on the right team, I think, can have a tremendous impact. Like you guys said, obviously his speed is like his first, second, and third positives, but he's a complete receiver. The only knock, or the only serious knock I have against him, which is kind of related to his size, is, contested catches. He can make difficult catches, but as soon as there's any kind of contest, he doesn't have the strongest hands. He's not going to win. Like if there's any contest, I don't have confidence that he's going to come down with the ball. But I mean, there's a lot of guys who can't make contested catches. He's not that kind of guy, and there's not a lot of guys who have that kind of speed who can use it the way that he does. Also, I think he can play in the slot, but and I think that's a more like for the Eagles looking for a receiver. I think we would be looking for more of a pure slot guy who might be able to have some stronger hands or make some contested catches. But either way, he would be a great weapon to have, and somebody you just want to get the ball in his hands and let him use that speed.
I think he would absolutely dominate a Kellen Moore offense.
And I think I could see a team talking themselves into like a mid-first round pick just because of his speed. I know that that tends to happen with receivers, especially with receivers as fast as he is.
Yeah, if he has a great combine,
4.3 speed.
Yeah. If he runs a ridiculous 40-yard dash, you could be talking. To me, he's a much more complete receiver than John Ross was.
Right.
But that could definitely happen because John Ross, he was talked about leading up to the draft because he had a lot of production coming out of Washington, but that 40-yard dash put him in echelons in places that he never would have really fathomed of being. If Xavier Worthy goes to the combine, runs low 4.3, maybe high 4.2, you could see the same thing happen with Xavier Worthy.
Yep. And that's what, speaking of combine, that's what kind of sucks about us doing this. We're trying to schedule it out so it leads up to the draft, and like when the draft comes, we got everything done and it just all makes sense. We're starting some of our rankings before the combine, so some of these guys may be skyrocketed up and some guys may fall down. Example, if Johnny Wilson runs a 4.2 at 6'7", he's going to skyrocket. But
Johnny Wilson runs a fucking 4.2 at 6'7", like 220 pounds. He might be the first player taken off the board in Chicago.
My love for Johnny Wilson won't die. Whenever I see a 6'7" receiver coming to the draft, it has me intrigued, But enough about him, because he could be DGB all over again. But we don't speak of that man.
I seen the comment. Eagles fan asked if we drafted Xavier Worthy, would we be too slim at receiver? I think that brings up a different kind of discussion on where the position of receiver is actually going in the NFL. You don't see a lot of big body receivers anymore. I think the game is more so changing to smaller guys who can work well out of breaks and have game-breaking speed. Because you got to think, for one, there's not big hits really in the league anymore. You'll get flagged for it. There's not the corner position and safety position isn't as feared tackling wise as it is as it may have used to been. Now it's more so, can you stop a big play from happening? That's kind of where the league is going. I was just kind of wanting to get your guys' opinion on that comment.
Yeah. The too slim comment or what you just said, or both?
Both.
All right. Yeah. So, you had a great point. Like the league isn't what it used to be, right? There aren't many like Richard Shermans at cornerback that will impress you to death. There's not a Cam Chancellor or a Brian Dawkins or
looking to take your head
Ed
off.
Reed. Yeah. If there is, you know where they are? They're lined up in the box as another linebacker in the hybrid role. So in today's NFL, speed kills, but it's also nice to have a complement to like the speedy, slim receiver. Like we have AJ Brown. AJ Brown's thick as fuck, you know? And so it's a nice combo. But I also think that on the flip side of that is you're looking at San Francisco and see what they're doing with like, they're not bigger guys, but they're definitely, after contact, they're going to get some more yards, you know? That's what you worry about. But at the same time, if you can blow by everybody, who cares? Because they're not going to touch you anyway. But you know, one of the receivers that's kind of older that I think about that's like not big and has had like a great career, hasn't been hurt a lot, is Tyler Lockett. And I mean, he's a prime example of, you know, surviving being a smaller guy. And, you know, he's done it for like what, 10, 11 years now. And he's still solid. And, you know, I think playing smart and with the way the game's going now, where you can't just, as soon as you catch the ball, get lit up. I think it's okay now, you know. But I do like
it also pays a lot if you know how to take a hit and keep yourself out of harm. Like if you're down the sideline, you see somebody about to come try to take your head off, it's save yourself and get out of bounds compared to getting those extra yards. So I think the best example is on the Eagles pretty much right now as we speak. Devontae Smith has been healthy. I think he missed one game this year, and that was the first time he's missed a game in his career so far. So if you ever need an example of how to take care of your body and how to take care of yourself, playing in today's league as a smaller receiver, your example is number 6 on the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, with the way defenses have changed, like you guys said, and also offenses are just so good at scheming players open nowadays that just being able to get the ball into the hands of some of these speedsters, that's good enough to get them, to keep them productive. And I think that's partly why you don't have as many like big physical corners and safeties as we used to, because those guys aren't able to keep up with the same kind of speed. So as the receivers get faster, the corners have to keep up. And so that kind of just snowballs into the way that the league's progressing now in terms of the passing game.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And if a wide receiver is too big or big, they usually move them tight end anyway. So that's the way the game is now. And those blocking tight ends that you grew up watching, they're now tackles. So
yeah,
it's a different game than what it was, a couple years ago. But yeah, let's move on to his teammate, A.D. Mitchell from Texas as well. This one, he's definitely, I feel like, going to be a late first round pick. He's taller, he's 6'4", but he also still has a smaller frame, coming in at 196.
he's intriguing though.
Yeah, I think that both those guys will be wins for any team. But what can you tell me about him, Bryce? What more can you tell us?
So Adonai Mitchell, known as A.D. Mitchell, actually used to be a Georgia Bulldog, former teammates with Jalen Carter, Keely Ringo, all these guys that play for the Eagles now. This is their former teammate. Transferred to Texas this past year. I'm trying to think of just a comp off the top of my head. I'm thinking like T. Higgins, kind of. He might be faster than T. Higgins, honestly.
About George Pickens.
George Pickens works too. Former teammate at Georgia. He's I think he's actually more of a complete receiver than people actually give him credit for. He helped out that Texas offense a lot when he transferred there because beforehand, pretty sure it was a lot of Xavier Worthy doing a lot of being kind of like that star number one. A.D. Mitchell transferring to Texas helped out both of them a lot. He runs good routes. He can run a deep route almost as good as anybody I've ever seen in college football in a long time. He can track a ball really, really well. He's got good hands. He's physical at the catch point. He's physical at the point of attack. I've seen a couple plays for him. He kind of uses his size. Like you always talk about, if you're down in the red zone, he can box people out with his height, not so much his weight. He's got good speed, not killer speed, but pretty good speed. I think a lot of it is him just being able to run a deep route and track a deep ball very, very well.
Yeah. He's a great route runner. I know he's like his biggest weakness is just sometimes he misjudges the ball in the air, and I think that's something that can be fixed over time. Definitely wouldn't worry about it too much. There's not a lot of weaknesses to his game. It's just finding like the small things to become more of a complete wide receiver. Sometimes he does get sloppy on his route runnings, especially if he's not winning early. You know, his effort just begins to fall off. But I mean, other than that, I mean, it's definitely a win if your team picks him up. I think in a couple of years, you know, he'll be great. Which I think could happen to a lot of these guys that we have in our top 10. I feel like I said at the beginning, I feel like this is a pretty stacked draft class. And honestly, we should have did top 20 just to give some of these guys like the mention, because I feel like if you aren't familiar with the draft and like the prospects coming in, you're going to miss out whenever your team drafts a player in like the third, fourth round, because there are some people on here that I wish I could talk about, and we might talk about them later on. But you know, I feel like A.D. Mitchell's going to be great, and if he just cleans up some of his effort issues, I feel like he's going to be a super complete wide receiver in this league.
Yep.
But yeah, anything you want to add, Josh?
Yeah, I think he's I like the T. Higgins comparison. I think that he's and like Jay said, a more complete receiver than people give him credit for. The only real knock I have against him is running after the catch and like top end speed. But I mean, you can't have everything in a receiver unless you're drafting like Marvin Harrison Jr. But overall, I mean, I think he's a great prospect. I think that you know, we wouldn't want to put him in the slot, but I think that he's a good X receiver. He's good at getting open and he's good at catching the ball. I mean, well, you know, it's pretty much two big things you want in a receiver. So
definitely want to catch the ball.
Yeah. So I mean, this is another guy I could see in a few years maybe being higher up. Like if people did a redraft, people would be like, "Oh yeah, he should have gone a lot higher." I mean, overall, I think he's solid. I don't think he's not the kind of guy I think he's gonna bust by any means. But I also don't think people are ever gonna think he was like the top receiver in the draft or number 2, because I think we know who the number 1 is gonna be. But
we do.
Yeah.
We definitely do. He's 6'7".
Yeah.
I'm at number 3.
All right. Next up, number 6, Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU, our first of 2, spoiler alert, LSU receivers in this draft. 6'4", pretty tall, 205. Definitely, I don't feel like he's as polished as some of the other receivers on this list so far. I think that he could definitely, you know, route running is definitely like his biggest issue, but I feel like as far as like physicality and everything else you want in a receiver, he's got it. It's just polishing up the route running at the next level. And once that happens, the sky's the limit.
Right.
What else can you tell me about him, Bryce?
So Brian Thomas Jr. My comparison for him, just coming out of college and the college itself, reminds me a lot of Terrence Marshall when he was coming out of LSU. Brian Thomas is a height, weight, speed guy. You said 6'4", 205, but he runs like he's 5'10", 170 pounds. He's really light on his feet, and he can stretch the field. He can fly. This is a guy I'm very interested to see what his 40 time is. I think he kind of plays physical, but not to the aspect where you're like, holy shit, like this guy's gonna outmuscle just anybody. But he's got a thicker frame for 205. I think he might have, don't quote me, I don't remember a lot of his years early at LSU, so I'm thinking he's kind of a late bloomer. Working with Jaden Daniels and also having Malik Neighbors did a lot of good things for his draft stock. I've seen a comment says, why is LSU so good at producing wide receivers? Because once you start putting a couple in the league, and a lot of them tend to be really good, it draws a lot of interest to high school receivers. They might be wide receiver in the NFL or just in college alone. I like Brian Thomas a lot. He's not much of a slot receiver. I would be pretty hesitant to put him in the slot. He can work out of the slot, but I don't think his route running is as crisp enough as it would need to be going in the slot, being that tall. Excuse me, being as tall as he is, working into the slot position. He's definitely a true X or Y receiver. He'd be a really good complement to a team with an already bona fide number one. You look at teams like, let me think here. I mentioned the Texans. Him and Nico Collins would be pretty cool to see. Or, I don't know, maybe Tennessee. Tennessee's drafting really high to the point where I wouldn't think they would ever think about taking him. But teams in need of more depth at the wide receiver position, he's a guy that would be really intriguing to me for a secondary receiver spot.
Yep. Josh, you got anything you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, I like Brian Thomas Jr. a lot. I know he was a former basketball player, and I love his ability to make those contested catches and use his size, kind of the way I'd like Xavier Legette to use his. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much more to add aside from what you guys said. I think he's yeah, I mean, I like him a lot. I think he's probably best suited, like Bryce said, for a team that already has an established number one. But he's also the kind of guy I could see developing into a number one for a team, based on that contested catch ability. And like we said a few receivers ago, that's becoming more and more rare in the NFL today. And he has the potential to be one of the top receivers in the league at that.
Yep. I think it's a high ceiling pick. That's what you're shooting for with this pick, to mold him into something great. And so if you know what you're doing, great pick. If you don't, there's always a chance that this doesn't turn out to be a great pick. But that was Brian Thomas Jr. Before we move on to number 5, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from Bet Online.
Calling all sports fans. It's time to play at BetOnline, America's #1 website to back your favorite teams. We've got all the major sports covered at BetOnline. Football, baseball, basketball, hockey, MMA, golf, and tennis. With the earliest odds, best props and futures, as well as 24/7 customer support. If you love it, BetOnline has it. Join us and we'll treat you to a huge welcome offer. Sign up today at BetOnline. The game starts now.
And that was Bet Online. If you haven't already, check them out. Like we mentioned every episode, thank you to working with us. Click on the link in our link tree, which I will link in the description. They are currently, you sign up with them, they have a huge welcome offer. They'll match you up to like $2,500, I think. Can't remember how much it is, but they'll match you. They're fantastic. I use them because I live in South Carolina. FBI, don't come after me. But yeah, check them out. College basketball's here, NBA's here, baseball's coming up. Plenty of things to bet on. And then F1 racing is coming up too. Boom, there you go. But yeah, let's move on to our number 5 guy, Keon Coleman from Florida State. Johnny Wilson's teammate. What tell me about him, Bryce.
Keon Coleman, former basketball player. Pretty sure he was a 5-star in basketball and a 5-star receiver coming out of high school. Initially enrolled at Michigan State, transferred from Michigan State after a year or two there, went to Florida State, had a really, really good year. Initially, he would have been my number 2 receiver. If you asked me a couple months ago, when the college football season was about halfway through, to me, he was the number 2 receiver. He is a athletic freak. This guy's a highlight play, just pretty much waiting to happen. Pretty sure the first game of the year this year, he went for a hat trick against LSU, had 3 touchdowns. Pretty much dominated that game. He's got a couple one-handed catches on the year, a lot of splash plays. There is some negatives about him, though. He's not the greatest route runner. He's not too entire. He doesn't have a massive route tree. He can't run everything that you would want a first-round pick receiver to pretty much run. To me, if it was still me, he would still go first round. I think it'd be kind of crazy if he fell down to the second round or even deeper into the second round. Height, weight, speed guy, but he's just an athletic monster. He falls into the right coaching staff and the right scheme with a really good receivers coach. This guy could be one of the best receivers in the National Football League.
Yeah, I think based on the list we have right now, I see the list. You guys don't. Sorry. He is probably not in the top 5 right now as far as like skills right now. I believe he's probably number 10 as far as skills at this very moment when it comes to route running and everything as a whole for a wide receiver. But as Bryce mentioned, height, weight, speed. He's 6'4", right? It's tall. I think he's 210, maybe more, 215. So 6'4", 215. And also, like Bryce said, his route tree isn't spectacular. He's coming into his rookie season. He's probably going to run basic routes. You do not want to see anything spectacular from him. It's probably going to be simplistic routes. But with that being said, if he gets a chance to make a play on the ball, it's going to be great. It could be great. And that's why you draft somebody like that. He's not a great run blocker. He's not a great route runner yet. I believe he can take it to that next level. So you draft him based on his physical nature, and I feel like this is also another high ceiling guy and pay off. And that's why he's so high on our list, is because the potential is there. It's going to take a coaching staff to unlock it. He's got to get a little faster. He doesn't have super elite top end speed, and it takes him a minute to get to that speed. But I think I wouldn't label him as a project. He's almost a project, but not quite. He could probably play right away.
I think he's a project that you could get some production from right now.
Yeah. Yeah, because like whenever I say project, because like when I think of project, I'm thinking like somebody that's like completely raw, just new to the game, not want to play at all. Whereas this guy could play, but you're gonna have to work with him and you're gonna have to give him time. So like
I think it's a success story his rookie year if he has like 700 yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns. Like that's a success for his rookie year.
Yeah. So definitely another high ceiling guy.
Yeah, I think the name of the game with Coleman is potential, like you guys said. I mean, he's a freak athlete. But yeah, I mean, he's just going to need time to continue to develop as a receiver. He's really just a great all-around athlete. He even played a little bit of college basketball. He played a few games for Michigan State. But yeah, I mean, he's not going to be the kind of guy who's going to blow teams away with his complex route tree. Not that he can't develop that. And like you said, Chase, I mean, I don't want to call him like a totally raw prospect, but he's definitely not as polished as a lot of the other guys on this list. But the sky's the limit. I mean, he's arguably, he's one of the best athletes in the class. And yeah, he needs to go to a team that's not going to rely on him for big production right away. He needs time to grow as a receiver.
Yeah. I can see him being a hot pick, but not starting right away.
The best way I can kind of describe Keon Coleman. So if you've ever like grown up just hanging out with friends as a kid or something like that, or playing sports, there was always one kid that was good at everything that you would do, whether that be video games, playing golf, skipping rocks, throwing a football, baseball, basketball, anything. There was always one that was just naturally gifted at anything that he did. Keon Coleman is that. Now, getting him to the point of where he needs to be to being a star NFL receiver, that the potential of him, that there's potential within him that he can be that. It's just going to take some coaching and mentoring to get him there.
Yep. All right. Number 4. When you think of Oregon, what do you think of? I think speed right away, Also cool uniforms. And with Troy Franklin, you get that. You get speed. You get speed, you get size. What else do you get, Bryce?
Consistency. You get a lot of consistency from Troy Franklin. This was Bo Nix kind of number 1 go-to guy this year when in terms of throwing the ball. Troy Franklin, about as solid gets. Got good hands, runs really good routes for how big he is, for his lengthy frame. I don't think he's really heavy.
He's 185.
He's just real tall. And he's about, when you turn the tape on, you just think of good release and really good top end speed and consistent hands.
Yep. That's what you're going to get. Consistency. Whenever he was targeted, quarterback rating was 146. So that's great. So you're going to get a solid pass catcher. The only downside is he does have a slight frame, so chances are he'll go down first contact. He'll break a couple tackles here and there. You probably want to get an average blocker just because of the size. Guys are bigger and faster in the NFL. So he's probably about average right now. If he adds a little bit more muscle, he'll probably stay average. If not, he'll probably be below average blocker. So that'll cut into his snaps to the next level if he's not able to improve on that. But his biggest knock to me is one of the more frustrating things wide receivers do. Going across the middle, you hear footsteps, the ball's being passed to you, you don't look the ball in. You start trying to run before the ball gets there. I think that's his biggest issue. for all the good things we say about him being consistent, as far as just anytime the ball's thrown his way, he's probably want to catch it. That's his one knock on is right there. You got to complete the catch before we start making plays, because if you don't make the catch, play's over. So that's my biggest knock with him. I think he's going to be a great player. And I can't wait to see what happens with him. But that's all I got on Troy Franklin.
Yeah, I like Troy Franklin a lot. Troy Franklin. You can put him all over the field. You can put him in the slot. You can put him outside. He's got great length, great catch radius. He's got sure hands. But like you said, Chase, I don't like that he looks like he's too concerned with getting yards after the catch. Sometimes he needs to focus on like catching the ball and then running. Sometimes it feels like he's trying to run before the ball gets there. And I mean, that's a big knock. That's one of my biggest pet peeves when I watch a receiver. But I mean, I don't really have another knock against him except for the fact that he doesn't have like elite size. Just in terms of bulk. I mean, 6'2" is a great height, but he's added some weight, but I don't think he's ever going to be, like a big physical receiver, like winning matchups with his strength. But yeah, like you said, I mean, I'm excited to see where he ends up in the NFL, and I think he's definitely going to be a productive receiver for a long time.
Gotcha. Well, number 3 comes from Washington, winning Rome. What do you get, Bryce?
Rome Odunze. So, about him. I like Rome. To me, there was a point in time Rome was actually my second, rated as my second highest receiver in this draft class at points in this year. Height, he's a high weight speed guy, but he has a lot of production. And as soon as you turn on the tape, he is very, very physical when it comes to the catch point. This is, if you like big physical receivers, Rome is kind of that receiver. Was in that Washington offense that freaking dominated. Looked really, really good with Michael Penix and Jalen Polk. Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb. They did everybody did an outstanding job at Washington last year. Rome is one where I think we can finally start saying that he's a team's number one receiver. If they draft a receiver, they're in need of a number one. And that's Rome Odunze. I like him a lot. I think he's going to be a really, really good player at the next level.
Yeah, he was a track star, in high school. So typically that's a story you hear about some running backs and wide receivers, and that's where the knock comes in. Is he's still raw as a wide receiver. His release isn't the greatest. You want to see him improve on that, and then just that edge to go up and go grab a ball isn't there yet. And I feel like all it takes is one time for it to happen, and it'll be there. It'll click instantly. I think he's gonna be great. I think he has all the tools needed. He just needs a coach that will coach him up to where he needs to be. And I feel like I've said that 7 times already, but it's true. Coaching is a big part of it. And I'd be excited if the Eagles picked him. He's not going to make it that far at all. He's going to be a first rounder. He's probably going to be in the top 10, especially with a good combine. So whoever gets him, lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Rome's like you said, Chase, a legit number one receiver for sure. He was the top option on one of the best offenses this year. Washington went crazy. I honestly think that if he came out of the draft last year, which he would have been the top receiver off the board. But he bet on himself, and even though he won't be the top receiver this year, barring a miracle, I still think it paid off. Yeah, I mean, he's great. He's a fantastic athlete, great route runner. He's good after the catch. He's good at the point of catch. He's good at tracking the ball downfield without, changing his stride. Yeah, I mean, I think he's in a lot of years he might be the number one receiver, and I don't think he has a strong weakness, or definitely not anything that couldn't be coached up. I almost started to say like he has to be in the right situation, but I think he's the kind of receiver where like it doesn't really matter. I think he's going to be super productive wherever he goes. Um, but I mean, if he lands on a good team, he could be like a top receiver very quickly.
Yep. So now number 2, if you're looking for the perfect plug-in explosive slot receiver right away with the potential to become a super elite outside receiver, look no further than Malik Neighbors from LSU. He's explosive. He's explosive. He's definitely the number 2. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's great after the catch and after contact, and he's going to be explosive. He's going to be fun to watch. Will instantly be one of your favorite players if your team gets him. If your team doesn't get him, probably not. But the past couple guys have been like 6'4", 6'3". He's 6 foot, but he's also pretty thick. I believe he's 200, so not average, but still bigger than some of the other guys on this list. Great at tracking the ball. He'll go up and get the ball too. He's great. What's the word I'm looking for? He'll high point a ball. He'll go up and get it. And he's just explosive. And that's what you're going to get with this player is an explosive route runner that's going to excite you.
Yep. To me, immediately when you turn on the tape, you can definitely see the Jamar Chase influence coming from his former school. If you get the ball in his hands, he's definitely that Debo kind of player that turns into a running back and can make a lot of plays on yards after catch. I like Malik Neighbors a lot. You would kind of wish that he was a little bit taller, just working on how just his play style and the way he plays, and you wish he had a little bit more height to him, but honestly, you can't really tell a difference because he'll go up and get a ball. If the number 1 that we have ranked wasn't in this draft class, he would easily be the number 1 receiver, and it wouldn't be particularly close, to be honest. I think there's more of a debate between who's number 1 and who's number 2 than of kind of anybody else. I never would have thought that. Me personally, I've seen the discussions on social media. There's arguments on who's number 1 and who's number 2 just based on production alone and potential. But man, I like Malik Neighbors a lot.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind when I think of Malik Neighbors is production. It doesn't matter how he's getting the ball in his hands or where he gets it. He's going to get catches. He's going to get yards. He's going to get the ball in the end zone. Like you said, Chase, he's very plug and play. He's not the tallest guy, but he's 6 feet's not short. He's not the fastest guy, but he's still fast. I mean, he's just very good all around, and he just has that I don't know what to even really call it. Kind of like intangibles, but just like that. I don't know, kind of that it factor at receiver, where he's just gonna produce. He did at LSU. He's going to in the NFL, and whatever team drafts him is going to be very lucky.
Yeah. Now we move on to our number 1. Some of you've probably seen it coming, and hate to spoil it for you. It's Johnny Wilson from Florida State. Marvin Harrison Jr. from Ohio State. Obviously, I don't think there's anybody that will tell you that he's not the number 1 receiver. There's not many negatives about him at all. There's not. The one thing I guess you could say is, I don't know. I really don't know. There's not much to hate on him.
He's never beat Michigan.
You can say that. So you can say that. I mean, he's not going to break a ton of tackles. So if we want to talk negatives, he's not going to break a ton of tackles, but who cares? I mean, he's elite. He saw double teams.
A lot of the times he's going to be mossing your top corner in the back of the end zone anyway, so it's not really going to matter.
Yeah, I mean, his whole senior season, he was like pressed at the line and double teamed. And he won consistently. So I don't know. There's not much to say as far as negatives, but I don't want to like, I don't want to be too positive. I don't want to be like, hey, this guy could be the greatest of all time. His dad is a Hall of Famer, and he has the potential to do that. And
his dad is considered one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah. So I mean, that's there. That bloodline's there.
The lineage runs deep.
Yeah. So he's hands down number one. The biggest question going forward is like, is he going to be picked number one? And if it was any other year, I'd say, he'd probably go number one. But if you look at the teams that are number one, number two, they need a quarterback. Unless the Bears just believe in Justin Fields. So he could go number 3 to the Patriots, I believe. And that'd be a steal. That would be a steal. If you don't get him, if you get him at number 2, it's still
they don't have a quarterback. I mean, who's gonna? I don't trust anybody in that quarterback room to really get him the ball.
Yeah, that would suck, wouldn't it? Yeah, because Mac ain't doing anything. So
right.
So yeah, but
best thing I could say about him, if they decided to ever hand out a gold jacket on draft night, to me he'd be the top candidate for it. Fucking height, weight, speed, make any catch you could think of, run any route. He might be one of the best receivers I've seen in a long, long time.
Has there been a better receiver prospect since like Calvin Johnson?
It's hyped up, probably not. But I don't know. Mike Evans was pretty prospect when he was coming out.
Oh.
Yeah. But even Mike Evans, I don't think anybody suggested like he should have like the ability to go number 1 overall. I don't remember.
Right.
But I mean, if you could make a receiver in a lab, but they said, but you can't make Calvin Johnson, you'd probably make Marvin Harrison Jr. Like the only thing that I guess you could knock is like he doesn't have like, I don't know. He could be bigger, I guess. But
how tall was his dad?
His dad was like 6 feet or 6'1" maybe.
And he's like what, 6'4"?
He's 6'4". Yeah.
Marvin Harrison was. Yeah, Marvin Harrison was 6 feet 185. So he was not a big guy.
And Junior is 6'4", 205.
Yeah, he must get the height from his mama or something. I don't know.
I mean, my dad's 5'7", my mom's 5'6", and I'm 6'4", so sometimes this happens. But yeah, I don't know. We've been bullshitting for the past minute here, but he's the best prospect in the draft. He's number 1. Whenever we release our big board, guess what? He'll be number 1. And whoever gets him, no matter where it is, that's still the draft because he's a generational talent, and I think he could be a surefire Hall of Famer.
Yeah, he's that good, man. He's got There's Jamar Chase wasn't this hyped. Jalen Waddle wasn't this hyped. Julio Jones, I don't even know was this
Julio
hyped.
maybe, but yeah, I don't think he was this hyped.
I mean, there's a lot that he's a more complete receiver than I think anybody I've seen coming out of college in a long, long time.
Trying to look it up. They said Randy Moss, but like
Randy Moss was hyped, but that was 30 years ago.
Yeah. Justin Blackman, Larry Fitzgerald, Corey Davis.
Okay, see, Justin Blackman came to my mind, but
even still,
Corey Davis was crazy too.
Fucking Western Michigan.
I wanted him bad.
I wanted him, but I mean, I wouldn't have been like, "Oh, this guy's the best prospect in the draft." Like,
I mean, Calvin Johnson was and will always be the gold standard, in my opinion. But
yeah.
He's
in that mold of like a Calvin Johnson, Randy Moss, like just freak receiver, sick, but like freakish height, freakish everything. Like just, man, he's gonna be good.
I was going to say something truly outlandish, but I'm gonna not say it because
you
gotta say it.
No, trust me. I'll say it once we end this recording. I have a feeling Bryce knows where I was going with that, but yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr. is our number one receiver, and that'll do it for this episode of our draft show. Just a reminder, what's the draft? 59 days, 60 days, something like that. We will do first round coverage for all of it, and then second and third round coverage that Saturday. We'll hang around for maybe the 4th, 5th round, but 6th, 7th round we won't be there. Sorry about it. We'll tweet about it. We won't be there, but but yeah, we're excited. We're excited to cover the draft. Combine starts this week, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. That'll be fun. Definitely see people on our list climb or fall, and then after that, we can talk biggest losers, biggest winners of the combine. We'll do running backs next, and depending on the schedule, we might throw in tight ends as well. That'll be fun to talk about. Running backs is not going to be fun because no matter what we say, you guys are going to hate it because everybody has different opinions on running backs because they are not that great this year.
Braylon Allen's number one.
No, he's not. To you, in your heart,
he's my Jeff Wilson.
There you go. But yeah, thanks for watching the show. As always, if you're watching live, thank you. I know some of you have been commenting. We appreciate you watching live. It means the world to us. If you're watching this after the broadcast on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, follow, subscribe, like the show, give us a rating. Let us know what we're doing right. Let us know what we're doing wrong. Just don't tell us you hate us and give us a bad review. That would not be cool. And if you're looking for tickets, check out TickPick. As we've said many, many times, that's what I use to go to Eagles games. They have no service fees, so the price that you see is the price that you pay. And yeah, that'll do it. That'll do it. Any last words before we wrap this bad boy up?
How we trade up to number one for Marvin.
All right.
Marvin's not your number one.
You gotta send.
Could you imagine Marvin Harrison Jr., Devontae Smith, and AJ Brown in the same field? However, if we didn't make the Super Bowl, Jalen would get 8 alive.
I will say there was, now that we're sitting here thinking about it, a player that did kind of catch that wave of hype, but it wasn't the year that they were coming out of that draft.
Johnny Wilson.
Jackson Smith and Jigba, like his freshman and sophomore year was like skyrocketing after that Rose Bowl game. He had like 5 touchdowns or something that game.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
What time? But yeah, check out the links in our link tree in the description. We'll leave it there for you to check out our sponsors. This has been fun. It's been really fun. But we don't say go birds on the draft show because we're not supposed to be birds centered, but today and today only, we'll say it. As always, go birds.
Go birds.